Good morning, all. Welcome to today's lecture of disaster management. In previous lecture on Thursday, we have discussed about some of the measures for flood risk mitigation that involves floodplain regulation, natural flood risk reduction measures, insurance, government policies and regulations, research and monitoring. So today, in this session, we will going to focus on some of the other disasters and their risk mitigation. So, first of all, we will start with the drought risk mitigation. So, this drought risk mitigation refers to the actions and strategies that can be brought by the individuals or communities or governments and organizations to reduce the negative impacts of droughts. As we all know, that droughts are prolonged periods of abnormally low precipitation that can have significant social, economic, and environmental consequences. Mitigating drought risk involves a combination of proactive measures and preparedness efforts. See, in this kind of disaster, proactive measures are the major efforts that can reduce the impact of this kind of disaster. So, in this, here are some of the key strategies for drought risk mitigation that involves water conservation and efficiency. So, by encouraging and implementing water-saving technologies and practices in agriculture as well as industries and household can help reduce water consumption during periods of drought. So, as we all know, these are the three major sectors: industry, agriculture, and household, that can help by having some reduction in water consumption during drought period or period of drought. So, usage of water over there. Here it doesn't mean that minimal usage, but optimum usage of the water as per their requirement can help in coping up with the drought risk mitigation. Next is drought monitoring and early warning systems. Developing and maintaining drought monitoring systems that can provide advance notice of developing drought conditions is crucial for the preparedness. So, any kind of prolonged period of less precipitation, if it is measured and monitored earlier, then it can help as a tool for the preparedness to overcome such kind of disaster. Next point, that is water storage and reservoir management. Constructing and managing reservoirs so that other water storage infrastructure can help store water during wet periods for use during droughts. So, to cope up with the demand of water during drought, we should have a water storage infrastructure and reservoirs so that whatever rainfall comes during the wet period or during the monsoon can be saved effectively and can be used for or during the drought periods. Diversification of water sources. It is also one of the measures that relying only on a single water source can be risky. So diversifying means we are not focusing only on one water resource or one water source for to manage the water demand of an area or of a community. So we can also focus on groundwater as well as surface water and the new thing that is recycled water. Once it was used, like industrial wastewater can be recycled and can be used for the agricultural purpose or for the industrial use, so that it will so that it will eliminate the demand of water from these two sectors, because households are generally related to human health, so that cannot be recycled and cannot be used up to certain extent. So in agricultural activity or in industrial activity, we can use recycled water that can help and manage the demand of water. Okay. So if you want to note it down, please note down these points. Done. Okay. So now, what can be done in sort of drought planning and preparedness? That is developing and implementing drought management plans at the local, regional, and national level, which can help uh, the communities respond effectively to drought events. Another thing is that education and public awareness about the usage of water and about the importance of water conservation and how it could be helpful if the drought or if such kind of disaster took place. So this kind of preparedness can encourage individuals and business to use water more efficiently. So to give education about this and to have prepare aware about the impact of this kind of disaster on human life or on industry or on agriculture can make people more aware about the usage of water, or I can say effective usage of water. So education and public awareness will always help in any kind of risk mitigation related to any kind of the disaster. So a major aim that to having a diversifying water resource, to have more than one water resource in compared to other, we should focus on the education and awareness also, so that people can effectively manage their water demand by their own, so that when it comes to this kind of disaster, they are automatically, or they have automatically saved the water for their own use or for their own demand. Okay, so any question regarding this? Okay. Next kind of disaster that we have discussed in our first module in types of disaster, that is cyclone risk disaster or cyclone risk mitigation. So cyclone risk mitigation involves a set of strategies and actions aimed at reducing the impacts of tropical cyclones, also known as hurricanes or typhoons, in different parts of the world. So cyclones are powerful and destructive storms that can result in significant damage to coastal areas and pose a threat to human life. So mitigating cyclone risk is essential for protecting communities and most probably to the infrastructure. Here are some of the key strategies that can help reducing the cyclone or that can be part of cyclone risk mitigation. First of all, as it can be monitored, early warning system can be established. So this establishing effective early warning systems is crucial for providing timely and accurate information about approaching cyclones. So including their strength, path, and expected impact. As you all have witnessed it in last June itself, in this June itself, June 2023, when there was a cyclone coming and falling around the Kutch region of Gujarat. They were continuously monitoring it and continuously giving the updates about the strength, the path, and the expected impact time on particular region. So that could help the local administration as well as national administration to look after or to reduce the impact of the disaster itself. So this allows the residents and the administrations to take appropriate precautions in context to that particular kind of disaster like cyclone. Building codes and regulations that will help implementing and enforcing stringent building codes and construction regulations in cyclone prone areas to ensure that the structures are resilient and can withstand high winds and flooding also. Generally, with cyclone, in some areas, the flooding will also come alongside. So, the building construction or any infrastructure construction should be resilient against the such high flowing winds and the flooding impact caused by this type of cyclone, if any. So, it should be measured effectively and it should be kept in mind for future construction also, that if such kind of disaster comes, then we can have a proper preparedness for this kind of disasters. Storm surge protection installing storm surge barriers, leaves, and other coastal protection measures to mitigate the impact of storm surge, which are abnormal rise in sea level during cyclones. So these are one of the things. Also, the public awareness and education. Conducting public awareness campaigns and educational program to inform residents about cyclone risks, the preparedness measures, the evacuation plans, and the emergency shelters established by the local administration or by the state or the national administration will help people to understand that if they do not take or if they do not take exact precaution measures measured by or developed by the guidelines of administration department, they might come into the risking zone towards that disaster. Preparedness measures that involves evacuation plans and emergency shelters, their location, their details, how to reach there. So these are the things that is associated with the cyclone risk mitigation. If you want to note it down, please note down the points quickly so that I can move ahead. And if you have any questions, then you can ask. Yes, any questions from your side? Okay. So next point is about disaster drill and exercises. That conducting regular cyclone preparedness drills and exercises to ensure that emergency responders and the public are well practiced in responding to the cyclone threats. Sorry. Infrastructure resilience, strengthening critical infrastructures such as power lines, water supply systems, transportation networks to make them more resilient to cyclone damage. Natural buffer zones, as we have also discussed during the hazard mapping during the cyclone in the first module, that preserving and restoring natural buffer zones such as wetlands, mangroves, which can help absorb flood waters and reduce coastal erosion during cyclones. So they can reduce the speed or the intensity of the wind blowing towards the particular area or particular community. Land use planning is also one of the major factors. Implementing land use planning that restricts development in high-risk areas and encourages building in the safer locations. So this nature buffer zone and land use planning are more or less interconnected. If we first identify the natural buffer zones, then this land use planning will become more easier for the local authorities to have idea about the restrictions in the development of a city or a different restriction in the development of a area. Now the next one is landslide risk mitigation. So if you want to note it down, please note it down quickly and can ask any query over here. So landslide risk mitigation involves strategies and actions aimed at reducing the risk of landslides and minimizing their potential impacts on communities and infrastructure. Landslide occurs when there is a sudden and often rapid movement of a mass of earth material down a slope. So some strategies are landslide hazard mapping, identifying and map the area prone to landslides, taking into account factors such as slope angle, which kind of soil, that is soil type, historical landslide events in that particular area that could also help in this hazard mapping process. And by help of or with help of this landslide hazard mapping, we can develop and enforce the land use regulations and zoning laws that restrict the construction and development in landslide prone areas. These may include setting setback requirements from steep slopes. Setback requirements means up after certain extent. See, if there is a rocky strata over here, okay, and if it is coming into the picture like this area or this particular area of this rocky strata or mountain is past in past records it has created landslides, so we can create certain distance from that mountain or from that rocky strata, that after this distance we can have the construction approval, or in this area the construction can took place. So this particular distance is known as the setback requirements. Okay. Generally the landsliding takes place in steep slopes, not there in the moderate slopes, because of the mass movement or slight movement in steep slopes. The steep slopes are or will have lesser amount of slope stability, so that it could be more dangerous for the community itself. Next is slope stabilization and engineering measures. That implement engineering solutions to stabilize mountain slopes, such as retaining walls, soil reinforcement. We can use cement grout or cement slurry to fill up the cracks, if any, and we can create the retaining walls around the soil structure or the mountain, so that any kind of if there is any kind of landslide, the material will not directly fall onto the infrastructure itself. Vegetation management, promote the planting of native vegetation on slopes, so roots can help stabilize soil and reduce the erosion. Mainly, one of the reason from the research on landslide is due to the soil stabilization or is due to the erosion. So this having this vegetation on slopes, roots of that particular vegetation can help stabilize the soil more and reduce the erosion, which leads ultimately to the landslide. So these are the things. Drainage management is also one of the major factor as a risk mitigation in the landslide. So properly design and maintain drainage system to prevent the buildup of water that can trigger landslides. And this includes ensuring the storm water is directed away from the slopes, because storm waters are generally having more velocity or more flows. So that can lead to erosion, and erosion can lead to a landslide. So that we should have to manage the drainage during monsoons also. So please take note of this, and if you have any query, you can ask, or else I will head ahead. I will go ahead. Okay. So sediment control is implement sediment control measures to prevent sediment and debris from landslide to reaching the rivers and causing downstream flooding. So that is one of the major things in landslide risk mitigation. Soil erosion control, that is implement erosion control measures such as terracing and revegetation to minimize soil erosion or soil stabilization increasing in downslopes or on soils. Research and monitoring, as invest in research to better understand landslide triggers and behaviors, and continuously monitor and assess landslide prone areas, or we can say the plate movements or mass movement in that particular area. Now, the term that is about the disaster response, that includes is organized and coordinated efforts to address the immediate aftermath of a natural or human-made disaster, such as earthquake, hurricanes, floods, wildfires, pandemics, and industrial accidents. It involves a range of activities aimed at saving lives, providing relief to those who are affected, and ensuring the well-being of survivors. So effective disaster response typically follows a set of key principles, that is preparedness. Before a disaster occurs, preparedness activities involves planning, training, and resource allocation in the particular area. And this includes developing emergency response plans and conducting drills and exercises and stockpiling with the necessary supply and equipment. Stockpiling means saving the resources, and which could be used or which can be used during the any kind of hazard or disaster. Early warning system is also one of the major things that are crucial in providing timely information about the impending disasters, allowing for evacuation and emergency response efforts. This may involve monitoring weather patterns, seismic activities, or disaster or disease outbreaks. So weather patterns will help in cyclone and flood kind of disasters. Seismic activities can helpful in earthquake and the landslide sort of disasters. Immediate response. Whenever a disaster strikes, immediate response efforts focus on saving lives and protecting public health. This can include search and rescue operations during and after disasters, medical care, and the distribution of emergency supplies like food, water, medicine, and shelter. Evacuation, when necessary, education plans are implemented to move people out of harms or out of harm. These may include organized evacuations from flood-prone areas or the establishment of safe zones during wildlife fires or wildfires. Medical care, providing the medical care to disaster survivors is a critical aspect of response efforts. This includes treating injuries, addressing public health concerns, and managing the surge in patients at healthcare facilities. Shelter and basic needs, that is, establishing emergency shelters, distribution points for food, water, and other essential supplies is essential to meet the immediate needs of affected individuals and families. Communication, effective communication is a key during disaster response. This includes disseminating information to the public, coordinating response efforts among various agencies and organizations, and providing a means for individuals to request assistance. So communication is not only about the giving info or information to the public, but it is also about the responding or coordinating response in between the various organizations and agencies that are involved in response to a particular disaster. And that could also help in providing assistance to an individual who to request a help from the administration department. Coordination, that is disaster response, often involves multiple agencies and organizations, so both governmental and non-governmental. So coordination and cooperation among these entities are vital, and to avoid duplication of efforts and ensure efficient resource allocation is also one of the major aspects. Assessment and data collection. Collecting data on the impact of the disaster is critical for informed decision making. This includes damage assessment, identifying the immediate needs, understanding the extent of the disaster's impact. Recovery planning. Even during the response phase, planning for recovery should begin. This involves identifying longer-term needs, rebuilding the infrastructure, supporting affected communities in their return to normalcy. Okay. So any questions on this? So those who have not written their enrollment numbers for attendance, requesting please note down it quickly. Please don't duplicate it. Those who have written it already, don't write it down again. Okay, so now we are moving towards the rescue or the various disasters that and rescue operations are critical in various types of disasters to locate and extract individuals in distress. The specific techniques and equipments used in search and rescue can vary depending on type of disasters. SAR are applied to different disaster scenarios. SAR means search and rescue operations. In natural disasters like earthquakes, after an earthquake, urban search and rescue teams are deployed to locate and extract people trapped under the collapsed buildings. They use specialized equipments like search cameras, listening devices, and heavy lifting machineries. During flood, swift water rescue teams are trained to respond to the flood situations. They use boats, ropes, and life vests to rescue people from swiftly moving water. Hurricanes and typhoons, search and rescue teams respond to hurricanes and typhoons to find people stranded by flood waters, high winds, or debris. These often involve helicopter operations, water rescues, and debris clearing. Wildfires, search and rescue teams helps and evacuate people in the path of wildfires, as well as search for and rescue those who might be trapped in remote areas. For technological and industrial disasters like chemical accidents, hazardous materials teams are deployed to respond to chemical accidents. They wear specialized protective gears and use equipment to detect, contain dangerous chemicals, and rescue affected individuals. For industrial accidents, in factories and on construction site, on industrial facilities, industrial search and rescue teams are trained to respond and confine the space and structural collapse scenario. Maritime and aviation disasters, where generally we deal with shipwrecks and air crashes. So Coast Guard and Marine Search Rescue teams are responsible for rescuing survivors of shipwrecks. They employ vessels, aircrafts, and lifeboats. And air crashes. In air crashes, search and rescue teams are respond to airplane helicopter crashes on land and water. They use specialized aircrafts, boats, and divers to locate the recover victims. Public health emergencies in pandemics, medical search and rescue teams may be deployed during pandemics for infectious disease outbreaks to locate, transport individuals who need medical care of healthcare system. Urban disasters, generally earthquake, when building collapses, or without earthquake due to any kind of structural failures. Teams are specialized in locating, rescuing people trapped in collapsed buildings, often using heavy machineries, search cameras. Now, the major term that is related to psychological response to a disaster, that is, in context of disaster or traumatic events, refers to the emotional and mental behavior or reaction individuals. We can communities experiences in the aftermath of such events. These programs can vary widely from person to person and can have significant short-term and long-term effects. Effectively, psychological and individual communities cope and recover. Here are the key aspects of psychological response. So I will start this psychological response in the next session from 11 a.m. to 11:40 a.m. So thank you for being here and thank you for listening. And there were no queries during the session. And I request those who have not still participated in quiz